The Devil and Simon Flagg by Arthur Porges. Originally published in the August 1954 issue of the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, followed by a French magazine called Fiction the following year. Republished in several anthologies, deals with the devil in 1958, Fantasia Mathematica, also in 1958, the Eureka Years in 1982, a Russian one in 1992, and 100 Fiendish Little Nightmares in 1997. It appeared in a collection of the author's stories called The Devil and Simon Flagg and Other Fantastic Tales in 2009. Read by Darrell T. Smith II for my channel Quasar Spectra. The Devil and Simon Flagg. After several months of the most arduous research involving the study of countless faded manuscripts, Simon Flagg succeeded in summoning the devil. As a competent medievalist, his wife had proved invaluable. A mere mathematician himself, he was hardly equipped to decipher Latin holographs, particularly when complicated by rare terms from 10th century demonology, so it was fortunate that she had a flair for such documents. The preliminary skirmishing over, Simon and the devil settled down to bargain in earnest. The devil was sulky, for Simon had scornfully declined several of his most dependable gambits, easily spotting the deadly barb concealed in each tempting bait. "Suppose you listen to a proposition from me for a change," Simon suggested finally. "At least it's a straightforward one." The devil irritably twirled his tail tip with one hand, much as a man might toy with his keychain. Obviously, he felt injured. "All right," he agreed in a grumpy voice. "It can't do any harm. Let's hear your proposal." "I will pose a certain question," Simon began, and the devil brightened, "to be answered within 24 hours. If you cannot do so, you must pay me $100,000. That's a modest request compared to most you get. No billions, no Helen of Troy on a tiger skin. Naturally, there must be no reprisals of any kind if I win." "Indeed," the devil snorted. "And what are your stakes?" "If I lose, I will be your slave for any short period. No torment, no loss of soul, not for a mere $100,000. Neither will I harm relatives or friends, although," he amended thoughtfully, "there are exceptions." The devil scowled, pulling his forked tail petulantly. Finally, a savage tug having brought a grimace of pain, he desisted. "Sorry," he said flatly. "I deal only in souls. There is no shortage of slaves. The amount of free, wholehearted service I receive from humans would amaze you. However, here's what I'll do. If I can't answer your question in the given time, you will receive not a paltry $100,000, but any sum within reason. In addition, I offer health and happiness as long as you live. If I do answer it, well, you know the consequences. That's the very best I can offer." He pulled a lighted cigar from the air and puffed in watchful silence. Simon stared, without seeing. Little moist patches sprang out upon his forehead. Deep in his heart he had known what the devil's only terms would be. Then his jaw muscles knotted. He would stake his soul that nobody, man, beast, or devil, could answer this question in 24 hours. "Include my wife in that health and happiness provision, and it's a deal," he said. "Let's get on with it." The devil nodded. He removed the cigar stub from his mouth, eyed it distastefully, and touched it with a taloned forefinger. Instantly it became a large pink mint, which he sucked with noisy relish. "About your question," he said, "it must have an answer, or our contract becomes void. In the Middle Ages, people were fond of proposing riddles. A few came to me with paradoxes, such as that one about a village with one barber who shaves all those, and only those, who don't shave themselves. Who shaves better? They asked. Now, as Russell has noted, the all makes such a question meaningless and so unanswerable. My question is just that, not a paradox, Simon assured him. Very well, I'll answer it. What are you smirking about? Nothing, Simon replied, composing his face. You have very good nerves, the devil said, grimly approving, as he pulled a parchment from the air. If I had chosen to appear as a certain monster which combines the best features of your gorilla with those of the Venusian greater cleep, an animal, I suppose one could call it that, of unique eye appeal, I wonder if you're a plum— You needn't make any tests, Simon said hastily. He took the proffered contract and, satisfied that all was in order, opened his pocket-knife. Just a moment, the devil protested. Let me sterilize that. You might get infected. He held the blade to his lips, blew gently, and the steel glowed cherry red. There you are. Now a touch of the point to some, ink, and we're all set. Second line from the bottom, please. The last one's mine. Simon hesitated, staring at the moist red tip. Sign, urged the devil, and squaring his shoulders, Simon did so. When his own signature had been added with a flourish, the devil rubbed his palms together, gave Simon a frankly proprietary glance, and said jovially, Let's have the question. As soon as I answer it, we'll hurry off. I've just time for another client tonight. All right, said Simon. He took a deep breath. My question is this. Is Fermat's last theorem correct? The devil gulped. For the first time, his air of assurance weakened. Whose last what? He asked in a hollow voice. Fermat's last theorem. It's a mathematical proposition which Fermat, a 17th-century French mathematician, claimed to have proved. However, his proof was never written down, and today nobody knows if the theorem is true or false. His lips twitched briefly as he saw the devil's expression. Well, there you are. Get to it. Mathematics, the devil exclaimed, horrified. Do you think I've had time to waste learning such stuff? I've studied the trivium and quadrivium, but as for algebra, say, he added resentfully, what kind of question is that to ask me? Simon's face was strangely wooden, but his eyes shone. You'd rather run 75,000 miles and bring back some object the size of Boulder Dam, I suppose, he jeered. Time and space are easy for you, aren't they? Well, sorry, I prefer this. It's a simple matter, he added in a bland voice. Just a question of positive integers. What's a positive integer? The devil flared. Or an integer, for that matter. To put it more formally, Simon said, ignoring the devil's question, Fermat's theorem states that there are no non-trivial rational solutions of the equation x to the n plus y to the n equals z to the n, for n a positive integer greater than 2. What's the meaning of— You supply the answers, remember? And who's to judge? You? No, Simon replied sweetly. I doubt if I'm qualified, even after studying the problem for years. If you come up with a solution, we'll submit it to any good mathematical journal, and their referee will decide. And you can't back out. The problem obviously is soluble. Either the theorem is true or it is false. No nonsense about multi-valued logic, mind. Merely determine which and prove it in 24 hours. After all, a man— demon of your intelligence and vast experience surely can pick up a little math in that time. I remember now what a bad time I had with Euclid when I studied at Cambridge. The devil said, sadly, my proofs were always wrong, and yet it was all obvious anyway. You could see just by the diagrams. He set his jaw. But I can do it. I've done harder things before. Once I went to a distant star and brought back a quart of neutronium in just 16. I know, Simon broke in. You're very good at such tricks. Trick nothing, was the angry retort. It's a technique so difficult. But never mind. I'm off to the library. By this time tomorrow. No, Simon corrected him. We signed half an hour ago. Be back in exactly 23.5 hours. Don't let me rush you, he added ironically as the devil gave the clock a startled glance. Have a drink and meet my wife before you go. I never drink on duty, nor have I time to make the acquaintance of your wife. Now. He vanished. The moment he left, Simon's wife entered. Listening at the door again? Simon chided her without resentment. Naturally, she said in her throaty voice. And, darling, I want to know, that question, is it really difficult? Because if it's not, Simon, I'm so worried. It's difficult, all right. Simon was almost jaunty. But most people don't realize that at first. You see, he went on, falling automatically into his stance for senior math, too. Anybody can find two whole numbers whose squares add up to a square. For example, 3 to the second plus 4 to the second equals 5 to the second. That is, 9 plus 16 equals 25. See? Uh-huh. She adjusted his tie. But when you try to find two cubes that add up to a cube, or higher powers that work similarly, there don't seem to be any. Yet, he concluded dramatically, nobody has been able to prove that no such numbers exist. Understand now? Of course. Simon's wife always understood mathematical statements, however abstruse. Otherwise, the explanation was repeated until she did, which left little time for other activities. I'll make us some coffee, she said, and escaped. 4 hours later, as they sat together listening to Brahms' Third, the devil reappeared. I've already learned the fundamentals of algebra, trigonometry, and plane geometry, he announced triumphantly. Quick work, Simon complimented him. I'm sure you'll have no trouble at all with spherical, analytic, projective, descriptive, and non-Euclidean geometries. The devil winced. Are there so many? He inquired in a small voice. Those are only a few. Simon had the cheerful air suited to a bearer of welcome tidings. You'll like non-Euclidean, he said mendaciously. There you don't have to worry about diagrams. They don't tell a thing. And since you hated Euclid anyway... With a groan, the devil faded out like an old movie. Simon's wife giggled. Darling, she sang, I'm beginning to think you've got him over a barrel. Shh, said Simon. The last movement. Glorious. 6 hours later, there was a smoky flash, and the devil was back. Simon noted the growing bags under his eyes. He suppressed a grin. I've learned all those geometries, the devil said with grim satisfaction. It's coming easier now. I'm about ready for your little puzzle. Simon shook his head. You're trying to go too fast. Apparently you've overlooked such basic techniques as calculus, differential equations, and finite differences. Then there's, will I need all those? The devil moaned. He sat down and knuckled his puffy eyelids, smothering a yawn. I couldn't say, Simon replied, his voice expressionless. But people have tried practically every kind of math there is on that little puzzle, and it's still unsolved. Now, I suggest... But the devil was in no mood for advice from Simon. This time he even made a sloppy disappearance while sitting down. "I think he's tired," Mrs. Flagg said. "Poor devil." There was no discernible sympathy in her tones. "So am I," said Simon. "Let's go to bed. He won't be back until tomorrow, I imagine." "Maybe not," she agreed, adding demurely, "but I'll wear the black lace, just in case." It was the following afternoon. Bach seemed appropriate somehow, so they had Landowska on. 10 more minutes, Simon said. "If he's not back with a solution by then, we've won. I'll give him credit. He could get a Ph.D. out of my school in one day, with honors. However—" There was a hiss. Rosy clouds mushroomed sulphurously. The devil stood before them, steaming noisomely on the rug. His shoulders sagged, his eyes were bloodshot, and a taloned paw, still clutching a sheaf of papers, shook violently from fatigue or nerves. Silently, with a kind of seething dignity, he flung the papers to the floor, where he trampled them viciously with his cloven hooves. Gradually, then, his tense figure relaxed, and a wry smile twisted his mouth. "You win, Simon," he said, almost in a whisper, eyeing him with ungrudging respect. "Not even I can learn enough mathematics in such a short time for so difficult a problem. The more I got into it, the worse it became. Non-unique factoring? Ideals? Baal? Do you know," he confided, "not even the best mathematicians on other planets, all far ahead of yours, have solved it? Why, there's a chap on Saturn. He looks something like a mushroom on stilts, who solves partial differential equations mentally, and even he's given up." The devil sighed. "Farewell." He dislimbed with a kind of weary precision. Simon kissed his wife, hard. A long while later she stirred in his arms. "Darling," she pouted, peering into his abstracted face, "what's wrong now?" "Nothing, except I'd like to see his work, to know how close he came. I've wrestled with that problem for—" He broke off, amazed as the devil flashed back. Satan seemed oddly embarrassed. "I forgot," he mumbled. "I need to— Ah!" He stooped for the scattered papers, gathering and smoothing them tenderly. "It certainly gets you," he said, avoiding Simon's gaze. "Impossible to stop just now. Why, if I could only prove one simple little He saw the blazing interest in Simon and dropped his apologetic air. "Say," he grunted, "you've worked on this, I'm sure. Did you try continued fractions? Fermat must have used them, and— Move over a minute, please." This last to Mrs. Flagg. He sat down beside Simon, tucked his tail under, and pointed to a jungle of symbols. Mrs. Flagg sighed. Suddenly the devil seemed a familiar figure, little different from old Professor Atkins, her husband's colleague at the university. Any time two mathematicians got together on a tantalizing problem— Resignedly she left the room, coffee pot in hand. There was certainly a long session in sight. She knew. After all, she was a professor's wife. You've been listening to pre-1990s speculative fiction readings with a highlight on science fiction by Darrell T. Smith II. Please consider clicking the donation link in the description box. Thank you so much for your time and your imagination.